Hi there, Sandy here. Welcome to another Friday Findings video at keepsakecrafts.net. If any of you have been working with polymer clay for any time, then you probably know about making blends. And perhaps you've run into a situation where your blends get out of control. They get too wide on you. Today I have a few tips and tricks for how you can keep your blends to any width you want. So just by way of example, here I have a couple of sheets of clay that I'm going to make into a blend. And I'm just folding them and making sure that I don't incorporate any air as I fold them. And then I'll roll these into balls. I've just got some green from my scrap bin and some opal. I thought that would be interesting to see how they blended together. And then this is my quick and dirty way of making blends, is I just take my ball and flatten it out into a triangle. Kind of want one edge to have a right angle. And then I'll just flatten it out a bit so that it's not too thick to go through the pasta machine. So here's my pasta machine. I have it set on the thickest setting. And I'm just going to roll it through. And if you've ever made blends using a pasta machine, you know that it tends to get wider and wider until it'll fill almost the whole width of your machine, depending on how much clay you have in your blend. Now, a simple way to keep it confined is just to use your finger. Just place your finger across the rollers, roll through. But it's kind of awkward to do that. You got to use your finger and then roll it and smush it, and it works, but it's a little bit awkward. One trick that I used to do was I would take blocks of clay, color doesn't matter, haha, and then those would limit. But they weren't real precise, and I had a hard time sometimes getting exactly the width I wanted. So I came up with a different system. And this system involves cutting lengths of 7/8 inch dowel into various lengths. And the reason this is marked 5 inches, although it obviously is not 5 inches long, is that if I put it on my pasta machine and measure the distance from the end of the wood to the other edge of the rollers, it's actually more like 5 1/8, but 5 inches is close enough. That will keep my blend limited to 5 inches wide. This one is 4 1/4 inches wide, and this green one is 3 1/4 inches long. So the longer the dowel, the less wide your blend. I even managed to keep this one down to 1 1/4 inches wide. It was a little tricky, and I'll show you that on the one I'm going to demonstrate. But it can be done. You do tend to get a little bit of buildup on the narrower ones, a little bit of ragged on the edges. But it worked really well for keeping this clay blend to a very narrow strip. I thought of this idea because just recently I published a video making these canes to make exotic botanicals flower pins. And if you remember, my blend was pretty wide, about the width of my pasta machine, and as I reduced it, it tended to get squiggly. Now I happen to like that for my pin. I thought the look was good. But if you were trying to reduce something and keep everything nice and straight and even, it would be more helpful to have your blend the exact width you needed it to be and not have to compress it across the blend very much at all. And then it would keep your lines straight on something like this rather than squiggly like these. So let me show you how this works. It's so simple. This one's going to keep my blend to about 2 inches wide. And notice I labeled both ends on all of them and the side, so I can easily grab whichever one I need. And you may have to kind of squash it down a little, especially the narrower ones. But you just pop it in there. If you have to, squish it off to the side just a little. And if you find your blend is starting to go a little wonky, what you can do is just flip it sideways. So let's squish that over a little. And that will help straighten it out a bit. And that's it. You just keep sending it through until it's blended as much as you need it to be. So these are all from 1/7/8 inch dowel. And I actually marked them an inch apart, but my sizes are a little bit off because one thing I forgot to account for is the thickness of the saw blade. So they're not all exactly an inch different, but it probably doesn't matter. Just keeping them close to where you need them to be will make your work with clay blends ever so much easier. So if you like this video, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Feel free to check out my Patreon page where you can learn how you can help support these tutorials and keep them coming for free for everybody and get great rewards for yourself in return. So happy creating. Bye-bye.